Namaskar, hello and welcome viewers. You're watching Committee Report with your host Kriti Mishra. Today we'll take a closer look at the report of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs on India and international law, including extradition treaties with foreign countries, asylum issues, international cybersecurity and issues of financial crimes. The Indian Constitution and international law have links dating back to the pre-independence era when India was a separate member of the League of Nations even during the times of the British rule. The Parliamentary Standing Committee recognizes the critical importance of safeguarding the country's interests in the varied streams of international law and notes with satisfaction that India is committed to multilateralism and enhancement of respect for international law. The committee, however, finds that India's capacity, expertise and involvement in the framing and further modification of international law in various spheres needs to be further fortified. And for deeper insights on the observations, recommendations of the committee and the action taken by the government, I'm joined by an illustrious panel of guests. Joining us in the studio, Mr. Suresh K. Goyal, former ambassador. Also joining us in the studio, Mr. Somesh Goyal, former DGP, Himachal Pradesh. And joining us through virtual platform, Mr. Sujit Kumar, MP Rajya Sabha. He represents the BJD. I welcome all of you to Sunset TV and thank you so much for joining us. And Ambassador, let's begin the program with you. Now, India is a party to more than 160 treaties, international treaties in the field of space, law, maritime law, aviation. India also follows the principle of dualism as far as international law is concerned. So please help us understand India and international law. Your opening thoughts on that.
Thank you very much, Kriti. Just like in any other system, whether national, international or whichever system we choose, there are always laws which need to be followed to make the system strong, to make the system sustainable and work properly. And whenever any member in the organization goes beyond the law or does not follow the law, there are problems, as we've seen, even in the modern world. Whenever a country has gone beyond the law, beyond the international law of sovereignty or protection of the territorial integrity, there are problems, wars. There are wars going on, there are wars, internal wars in other countries in Africa. So all that happens. Particularly, I think it's important for India that we should attach great importance and respect to international law. After all, we are the country, a firm believer in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And if you want to treat the whole world as a family, just like in a family, every member has to follow certain system, they have to follow certain structures, so that you not only do not step on each other's toes, but you basically learn to live with each other. And that requires international law. At the same time, I would like to forewarn that as a country, as a sovereign country, with its own domestic systems and domestic concerns and requirements, not all international laws are of our making or are suitable for us. Therefore, the countries actually under the international system have a choice to follow certain laws or not to follow certain laws. They have to specify right in the beginning, like in the case of the asylum, the Convention on Asylum.
Right,
we, right in the 1967, 65, I don't remember exactly, when the convention was signed, we said clearly that we will not sign the convention on refugees.
Right.
There were reasons for that. We can come to that later on. So we are not part of that convention, but we are part of, for example, CTBT. We are not part of CTBT. NPT, we have joined NPT only after our own concerns have been met. So basically, we choose the way we want to go, respect the international law, and basically be part of the community in accordance with those laws.
Absolutely, sir. And thank you so much for setting the tone and tenor of this discussion. And let's get to the specific issues and let's begin talking about the asylum issues. Mr. Sujit Kumar, the committee found that the Government of India's stance on the issue that India's domestic laws are adequate to effectively handle refugee crisis facing the country, as demonstrated in the past crises like Tibetan refugee crisis and Tamil refugee crisis, that was not fully convincing. Your take on Indian asylum issues and the laws to deal with it?
Ma'am, at the outset, I would like to state that I'm not a member of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on External Affairs, which has come up with this report. Now, going back to your specific query about the domestic law on asylum and refugees, asylum seekers and refugees, yes, we do not have a domestic law for refugee or asylum seeker in this country. We are not a signatory to the Convention on the Status of Asylum, the 1951 Convention. and the 67 protocol which amended it. Now, I think it's because, as Ambassador Goyal mentioned, for thousands of years, India has been a safe haven for refuge and for prosecuted people of all faith who have been prosecuted elsewhere have found India to be a safe soil. So the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam has been there in the DNA of this country. So I think because of this belief that there should be shared responsibility. India believes in this concept of shared responsibility. We do not have any domestic law, but I think the committee has recommended that in the absence of any domestic law, there should at least be a protocol, a domestic protocol on the status of refugees and asylum seekers, so that this will enhance accountability. This will help the executive to handle this crisis better. Now, talking of the Tibetan refugee, it's a slightly different issue because. In 1959, when His Holiness and then about 80,000 Tibetans followed him into India, it was a different scenario as compared to the Tamil refugee crisis, which was more like a conflict inspired refugee crisis. But I think the suggestion of the committee is really well taken, that there should be a domestic protocol. We definitely need one. There is no such protocol now.
Absolutely, sir. There has to be a domestic protocol. But Mr. Goyal, let's also talk about extradition. Now, India has extradition treaties with approximately 50 countries and extradition arrangements with approximately 11 countries. But, sir, the offenders take the advantage of absence of such treaties with certain countries, go invest there and settle there. So how do we fortify our domestic laws? And of course, as Ambassador also said, that it is not only within the realm of one particular country, it is how the international community behaves or takes a stand on that. Your thoughts, sir?
You see, you have raised a very pertinent question, Kriti. We have our extradition treaties with more than 4 dozen countries,
yes, sir,
and 11 understandings with the countries that extradition they will assist. But what happens is that unless all the countries come on board and they think in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, not that my criminal is my honorable citizen, but your criminal is criminal.
That's right.
So if we think like that, it doesn't work. There are unfortunately countries with which we do not have the extradition treaties, and they give not only asylum but citizenship on payment to certain financial,
That's right,
I think, desperados. And we have equally big problem with the countries we have extradition treaty with. I mean, if you look at the most celebrated financial criminals who are hiding in the UK, let's say.
right, sir.
In the last 30 years, only one person has been extradited, whereas we have been regularly extraditing people to that country. So these people not only hide behind the lack of availability of the extradition treaty, but also the local governments, local laws, local judicial processes to evade arrest and extradition for trial at home. That is one aspect of it. And internationally, Interpol, the lookout notices are issued, the red corner notices are issued, but till the community, the international community, thinks as one and they want to strike at terror, strike at crime, financial crimes, I think this problem is going to stay. It's not going to evaporate anytime soon. At the same time, we do need to have more extradition treaties with friendly countries or with all the countries in the world.
Ambassador Goyal, your thoughts, quick thoughts on that before I go to Member Parliament.
My take is that extradition, asylum, these are not just basically issues of international law. These are all very, very strong political issues.
That's right.
There are several countries where we have the extradition treaty with, and yet we find it very difficult to get the criminals extradited from those countries. I will not like to give examples for
Yes.
leaving out what I actually may be politically sensitive, but it happens because the extradition is used as a political tool also. Just as an example, there are so many communities who advocated Khalistan.
That's right.
And where are they at the moment? But they are not being extradited. So number one, making the law more effective for implementation, that is more important. Number two, I think we need to be very careful of mutual obligations in that respect. After all, when we sign the treaty for extradition, it's a mutual treaty. It is not just, now we have Dalai Lama in India.
Right.
If China considers that Dalai Lama is a citizen of India, the Dalai Lama is a citizen of China, and if we have an extradition treaty with China, would they or would they not ask for extradition of Dalai Lama?
Right.
It's a thought.
So these are very important issues,
Very
and of
important
course
issues, but we
cannot
should
be
not rush
looked
it.
in isolation.
But we should not rush into them.
Absolutely. There are
Yes.
several factors that decide such understanding between the countries. But let's also talk about financial crimes. Now, Mr. Sajid Kumar, the committee recommended having an international legal framework to tackle financial crimes, which are increasingly trans-border in nature. Now, India has several mechanisms in place for domestic coordination and cooperation at both the policy and operational levels to identify new and emerging trends and to formulate appropriate responses to tackle financial crisis or crimes. Do you think that we need newer laws, stricter laws? Because let's accept that in the international scenario, the way the financial crimes are committed, that is changing.
See, as the world gets more and more interconnected, and as the Indian economy gets more and more integrated with the global economy, this is only bound to increase. So you are absolutely right that there is a need, and in fact, the committee has stressed on that it's imperative to have an international legal framework for financial crimes. In fact, India has been very vocal to have a regulatory mechanism to regulate the crypto assets and other blockchain assets. I think one of the first countries in the world to speak on this. Now, talking of the need to amend the domestic laws or to have more laws, I think the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act of 2018 certainly needs to be amended. As of now, the act allows only crimes where the quantum of crime is over 100 crore to be under this act. But I think that should be brought down. That should be brought down to 10 crores, because there are many crimes which are maybe small in terms of monetary value, but has huge repercussions on the financial health of the country and financial stability of the country. So that, I think, should be amended. And I think given India's expertise in the IT domain and in the cybersecurity domain, because these are all interrelated issues, cybersecurity and financial crimes, these are all
Right.
interrelated. And also, I think in this current year of G20 presidency, India should take the lead in ensuring that this global framework and architecture is in place, because most of these financial crimes, financial syndicates, they do have connections with the drug cartel or with the terrorism network. So yes, we definitely need to take the lead in ensuring a global framework. And also the 2018 Act, the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, needs to be amended to enhance the punishment, to bring down the applicability of law to 10 crore. So I think these are some of the suggestions that the committee has made.
Right, sir. Those are the important suggestions. But, sir, you also talked about cybersecurity. Let me take that to Ambassador Goel. Ambassador Goel, your assessment of India's role in designing the global architecture of cybersecurity.
Now, cybersecurity is one issue which has acquired growing importance, particularly with the last one decade, after the expansion of the cyber structures, particularly because the system has become so huge and so pervasive that there are connections with different countries, and has become more complicated because the servers are located in the countries, the data servers, which are where we have no control by law on keeping them secure. They are governed by the local laws. So I think the cyber security, which is linked to financial security, financial instruments, international terrorism, cyber space can be hacked to cause an act of terrorism, civil aviation, financials, etc. I think there we need, I would say we need two things. I remember the example, in fact, after the United Nations, when we started talking about the convention on CCIT, and it didn't get through basically because nobody understood, or they understood what actually international terrorism is, but they couldn't let it go forward because they wanted to define international terrorism, and that never took place. I think in the case of cyber security, again, we need to have a very strong international convention, number one.
Right.
And number two, for implementation, we need to have an agency just like Interpol. Or maybe Interpol can also work on execution or implementation of cyber security. We need to have a central agency, international agency, which can work effectively on implementation of such a convention. These two things are a must.
All right, Mr. Goyal, as Ambassador Goyal says that we need to have an international agency as far as we've seen Interpol in preventing and preempting cyber attacks, which are certainly trans-border in nature these days. Sir, your thoughts on having such an international agency and efficacy of it?
Yeah, you definitely need an international agency for cybercrime. And at the local level, at the national level also, we need to have an agency because cybercrime is space agnostic.
Yes.
You can be in any continent, any city, any nook and corner of the world and commit crime anywhere else. So that is the kind of reach. The second issue is the data localization.
Right.
Because of that, investigation gets hampered.
That's right.
The third is the root servers are not located in the country. So these are some of the issues. And recently, Prime Minister had raised the issue of creating cyber commandos or the cyber warriors within the police structure in the country. I think that's very important. We need to pay specific attention to it because the jurisdiction of crime has taken place in state A, but criminal is sitting in state B. How do they coordinate? There needs to be a central agency within the country. That central agency should be coordinating with an international agency if we really mean to address this. Because dark web is also a major problem. When we talk of the financial problem, financial crime is totally linked with the cyber crime.
True.
Be it hawala, be it any other form of legit or illegit transaction. It goes on the wire. So these are interlinked and we need to have good mechanism in place.
Absolutely. And you talked about data localization. It is pertinent to mention to our viewers that the government is already working on the data protection bill and let's expect the bill in the next part of the budget session. But before we end this conversation, Mr. Sujit Kumar, your thoughts on India's presidency of G20, the opportunities for us?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity, though every country, every G20 nation will have presidency at some point because it's by rotation. But I think as we celebrate the 75 years of our independence, as we enter the what's being called as the Amrit Kal, I think it can't be a better time. You know, we are the largest democracy in the world, and as Honorable PM has articulated many times, the oldest as well. We are the largest growing major economy at close to 6.87%. No other country is close to our economic growth. So G20, $5 trillion economy, these are all great opportunities for us to take the lead on cyber security, on financial architecture, on many other issues, climate change. We have publicly articulated our goal of net zero by 2010 to 2070. Now, how do we reach there? We need interim goals. We need interim milestones. So, I think there are many ways where we can.
Right, absolutely right, sir. But Ambassador Goyal, as Mr. Sujit Kumar said, mother of democracy, shining star in the international landscape as far as economy is concerned, the opportunities that we have ahead?
I think the issues are such, particularly the issue of securities, the conventions, all these things. G20 being a congregation of 20 countries controlling about 80% of the economy, 60% of the trade, population is more than 60%. In that sense, G20 is the real microcosm of the world.
Right.
And where the UN cannot really take action because of the large number of people, the fractures between the UN, with the UN, G20, I think, can certainly provide a direction in which we need to go. And from that point of view, even if G20 cannot form a convention, G20 can nudge the world into taking a direction. And that's a role which we can perform very credibly.
Absolutely. Mr. Goyal, your closing remarks.
Well, the possibility of reaching out to one world, one earth, one future.
Right.
I think with Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam as the backbone of our thought, India is poised to provide direction and leadership in that.
And of course, we've been talking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one world, and one future, which is the shared responsibility of all the nations. On that note, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Sajid Kumar, Ambassador Goyal, and Mr. Goyal. Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sunset TV. Goodbye for now from my side.